Okay, so to give you a little bit of context, as you can see, all right, you have vocab terms from Chapter 5. If you haven't started on them, that's okay, but we have some due dates coming up, and that is on Wednesday, okay? But I will not be here on Wednesday. We go to Del Rapids that day for our next to last regular season meet, because after this week, then we host our own, then we're winding down. We go to conferences and then our region meet. So yes, our season is winding down fairly quickly. Your gentlemen and ladies volleyball and football seasons are going just a little bit longer, probably than what we go. Our goal, yes, is to send runners to the state meet. Now, whether that happens, we shall see. But in regards to your next evaluation, okay, that is a lot of it is from this chapter, okay, and explaining the difference between movements of materials across the cell membrane. And how many days do you suppose we've started asking that very same question? How many? A lot. Okay? So just like last time, okay, when we talked about 3 different parts of the cell, we would start the day, and when it came to trying to, let's say, recall that information, explain it, unfortunately some people missed out on that, and that happens, okay? So, with that, okay, again, your next evaluation will be this chapter. There will be no Chapter 5 vocab on your next exam. That's why we split it up in this certain way. That's why I said I will give you a little bit of context once I pass this out. Okay? So, we'll get into that a little further down the road, okay, to continually make sense of that. All right. So, what type of individual do you think you are? Autotroph or heterotroph? Okay. So, if you got a green thumb. With that, we continue on. When we think about plants, okay, in the process of photosynthesis, okay, there's 2 ways that these organisms make food for themselves. One, of course, we already know that they absorb sunlight, and involves a process with the electron transport chain, and we'll get into that a little later on today, okay? And that's what we are talking about here. So in the process of photosynthesis, that is for autotrophs, okay? They create their own food, okay? So heterotrophs, like ourselves, we get the nutrients that we need from our daily diet. And then when we consume materials in our diet, they're broken down into different categories. Of course, you have your carbohydrates, your proteins, your fats, and then your nucleic acids as well. That get broken down. Okay. So, with that, we'll be discussing what photosynthesis means here in just a few moments. Okay? Because as you can see, when we talked about this earlier, we're discussing the light reactions. And if we have light reactions, we'll also go into what's called the dark reactions. I don't think we'll get to that today, but as we move forward then, okay, back up. All right. All right. All right. All right. have our arms up. I thought maybe we would have come to class like this, since you held them up all hour. I wouldn't be able to do that either. So when we compare this to what we consider cellular respiration, okay, we incorporate that into this chapter as well. I mean, this is more so a unit. We just put a lot of it together in chapter 6, okay? Again, we'll give you more information as time goes forward. Okay? So in short, when we're talking about these light reactions, this is a summary of what we would consider the light reactions. Then the Kelvin cycle would be an example of the dark reactions. Okay? Again, we'll be looking into that here in a little deeper aspect in just a few minutes. So why do you suppose these reactions, the light reactions, why do they get their name? Why are they called light reactions? Well, when does it take place? What does it tell you? What about it? Yeah, well, it's coming during the daytime or daylight. Okay. Now, there's going to be different factors that would affect this. Temperature is one, but we'll get into that a little later on. I would venture to think that maybe some of you believe or have you look forward to the fall. The reason I mention that is you're looking at the trees, okay? Because what happens, we know from prior knowledge, the leaves on the trees, they're all green, okay? Because they have this pigment in them. What is it? Chlorophyll. And as time goes by, when we get later in the fall, that pigment starts to disappear. Well, not disappear, starts to diminish. So it may go from a hue of green to maybe different types of yellows, reds, purple. I guess I don't know. When you throw all those different combinations, and then you go by a state park or a woodland area that has a lot of these trees, you can certainly see why people may enjoy the fall. Okay, so since this gets its name, taking place during the day, well then these are called the dark reactions because this takes place at night. Okay, and it's just different biochemical reactions that take place so that this molecule can then be produced and stored. Because when we go back to George, okay, he didn't have many mitochondria in his cells, so therefore could not produce much what? Energy. Okay? If you don't have a lot of mitochondria, you do not have that ability to burn fuel in this form. So these organisms, they build up this ATP, whether it's during the day, light reactions, or at night, as you can see during that of the dark reactions. Okay. So moving forward, okay. I want to do this. Does everyone have this information that would like it? Still writing? Okay. All right. Okay, for those of you who are waiting, go ahead and open up to page 114, page 114. Okay. Does everyone have this then? Okay. Shut this down. Okay. So what I want you to think about here, when you're looking at page 114, when we think of photosynthesis, okay, and in elementary and even here in high school or middle school, excuse me, we talk about how plants will lower what gas in the atmosphere. Plants take in this substance, carbon dioxide, and then they give off what? Okay, so oxygen making machines, and that's essentially true. Okay, so here we got our carbon dioxide. Okay, so plants take this in, and then you don't need to be writing this down in case you are. You don't need to, but taking in what's the roots function, do you think, in the ground? It anchors the plant to the ground, but what else? It absorbs water and stores it there. Okay, or excuse me, it doesn't store it, it moves it up to the leaves. So then we've got our water here, and then what we see happening is this molecule is then made. It's very universal for animals then as well. Okay? And what do you suppose this process is making? We say food, yes, that's true, but sugar. Okay? The process is photosynthesis, and it's making sugar. So what do you suppose our main food source is? We would like for it to be fats because those are burned and give you more energy. But what's used before fats? Those are your sugars. Okay? So what we see happening is plants will take these two substances in to make sugar and then give off oxygen. Ourselves as humans and animals are just the opposite, where we take in the oxygen, okay? Then we burn the sugar, and then what do we give off as a byproduct? Carbon dioxide, okay? And then a little bit of water as well. So these reactions are just what we consider reversible. We can balance this too if you want. If you want to do that from physical science, just so you can remember that from those good times from a year ago. Not even a year ago, about 5 months ago. For some people it was good times, maybe others not so much. It's just a little bit of a precursor or indication. Some of you are plan on going to college, and that's great. We don't make the rules here, but if you are going to a four-year college, you're going to have to take this class. But if you're going to a VOTEC school, which they all have their places too, then you don't have to take that class. That's one of the things that you individuals need to start thinking about once the spring semester gets here, okay? Because what do you suppose in class makeup is the difference between sophomore and junior year? You can take more what next year? Not required classes, more electives, and dual credits. Yeah, those would be your electives as well. So that way you start, I don't know if you want to say navigating your way through or separating, this is what I'm going to be doing maybe in college, and maybe have a career path chosen. If you don't have one, no, it's not the end of the world. You got plenty of time to figure that out. And maybe some of you don't know. And if you feel that pressure, don't be so hard on yourselves. You've got time to decide what it is that you want to do in the future. Okay, so we're going to read what this means, and then tomorrow we'll talk about it. Okay, so where it says capturing light energy, because again, we're referring to the light reactions that take place during the day. Because plants can also make food for themselves at night. It's in the Kelvin cycle, but that is what we consider the dark reaction. So, capturing light energy on page 114. Okay, first stage of photosynthesis includes the light reactions. We spent a little bit of time on that. So named because they require light to happen. The light reactions begin with the absorption of light in the chloroplast. And we had said from prior knowledge, it's the chlorophyll, that's the pigment, and the chloroplast is what contains the pigment. Okay? Organelles found in the cells of plants and algae. Most chloroplasts are similar in the structure as shown in the figure below. Okay? Surrounded by a pair of membranes. Okay? And these thylakoids, okay, one way of looking at that is just a whole bunch of quarters stacked upon one another. And you can see that in that figure below. Thylakoids are connected and layered to form stacks of granum, is the actual plural form for that. So just like we've got a cytoplasm, well, so do plants. It's called a stroma, okay? It goes on to talk the surrounding grana is a solution called the stroma. Just like what we have, okay, a nuclei or nucleus, cytoplasm, and a cell membrane, well, so do plants. They're just named a little bit different. As we turn the page to light and pigments, to understand how chloroplasts absorb light in photosynthesis, it is important to understand some of the properties of light. Okay, so when we look at this, okay, what makes this shirt black, do you think? Okay, all of the spectrum of the, is that black? I suppose. All the lights of the spectrum are absorbed except which color? Black. That gets reflected back, and that's how we perceive that color. Or yellow, gold, whatever that is. Okay? All the different lights of the spectrum are absorbed by that material except for that color, and it bounces back, and our eyes perceive that as this specific color. Okay, so plants are no different. Okay, light from the sun appears white, but is actually made of a variety of colors, as shown in figure 6.4. That's what they're showing you to the right. For those of you going on to take physics, okay, the different wavelengths of light differentiate between what we call polarized light, because some of you maybe spend a little more money on sunglasses. Maybe yes, maybe no. It's because those sunglasses will filter out polarized light, and that's why they're a little more expensive. And you can probably see a little better because that way that extra UV light is filtered out of there, so it actually makes it look a little brighter, I believe. But then you're going to pay a little more, which you should. Okay. Okay, as shown in figure 6.4, white light can be separated in its component colors by passing through a prism. The resulting array of colors ranging from violet to ranging from one end to violet at the other is called the visible spectrum. Okay, so one of the things, if it was still sprinkling, and as we all know from elementary, it's raining or sprinkling outside, and the sun comes out. What do we see? I think you said it, a rainbow. Okay, so the water droplets then are the spectrum, or excuse me, the prism, and then the spectrum we see is that of the rainbow. And maybe you had heard of that, an acronym to keep separate all of the different colors from outside to inside. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo. I don't even know what indigo color is. Is that a shade of blue? Oh, it's a purple blue. Oh, that's not confusing at all. I believe you if you say purple blue. Okay, and then violet's the last one. Okay, so when white light strikes an object, its component colors can be reflected, transmitted, or absorbed by the object. Many objects contain pigments, compounds that absorb light. Most pigments absorb certain colors more strongly than others. By absorbing certain colors, a pigment subtracts those colors from the visible spectrum. Therefore, the light that is reflected or transmitted by the pigment no longer appears white. For example, the lenses in green tinted sunglasses contain a pigment that reflects and transmits green light and absorbs the other colors. As a result, the lenses look green. So just like we said, whether you different colors of your shirts, those materials are absorbing every color in the spectrum except for what we perceive that bounces back, that visible light in photons, and we see yellows, greens, whites and grays and blacks and purples or whatever. Violet, I don't know. The cougar shirt, okay? Maybe yes, maybe no. Okay. We'll wrap this up. Okay. One of the things, I just want you to make note of this. We'll be talking about this figure 6.5 tomorrow, where it's talking about the different shades or different types of chlorophyll. Because there is not one because we talk about this in anatomy and physiology, there's not one all-purpose enzyme that breaks down materials for us. There's not one all-purpose type of chlorophyll that absorbs all the different lights of the spectrum. Okay, through the process of how plants evolved, how we were possibly, you can say, even designed intelligently. We have different types of enzymes that break down different types of materials. So we'll go into that a little more tomorrow. So work on your Chapter 5 vocab, because you have till Wednesday. I guess we'll make that Thursday, because I won't be here on Wednesday to grade that. So Chapter 5 vocab quiz, that is on Thursday. So keep that in mind. All right.